everyone. We're continuing our limud of Sefer Yirmiyahu. We're now beginning Perek Mem Vav. We are towards the very end of the Sefer, Mem Vav, Mem Zayin, Mem Ches, Mem Tes, Nun and Nun Aleph. And that's all the way to the next to the last Perek. They deal with various prophecies that the Navi Yirmiyahu is given regarding the eventual defeat and downfall of the Umos HaOlam. These are prophecies not directly about the Jewish people. They are prophecies about various nations, which we will mention as we go through them. And it's important to understand exactly what is the function of these nevuos. As far as we know, Yirmiyahu was not sent to communicate these nevuos to the Umos HaOlam. Unlike, for example, Yonah, who was commanded to go to Nineveh, Yirmiyahu was not commanded to go to Mitzrayim. These are nevuos to Am Yisrael about the eventual mapala of the Umos HaOlam. So you might wonder, why is it necessary for Am Yisrael to hear these nevuos? And the answer is, they actually are part of the comfort, because these are nations, as we will see, that oppressed the Jewish people, that exiled the Jewish people, that destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, that murdered them, that took them as slaves, that raped their women, killed their children. And at some point, many people give up hope. They're miyayish. They think God has abandoned them. And the Navi needs to make the point that eventually all of these injustices are going to be punished. Eventually, the imbalances are going to be redressed. Eventually, the tables are going to be turned. So part of the nechama of the Jewish people is to realize that even if in the short term it appears that evil triumphs, in the long term, Rishus is going to be destroyed. So although these nevuos are al hagoyim, about the goyim, they are really directed to Bnei Yisrael. And Perek Memvav Pasuk Aleph says, Asher Haya Devar Hashem El Yirmiyahu Hanavi Al Hagoyim. So the first nevuah is on Mitzrayim. Now this Perek about Mitzrayim, Perek Memvav is about Egypt, falls into two parts. The first part was early in the reign of Yehoiakim, which was more than 18 years before the Churban Beis HaMikdash. And here you have to remember the book of Malachim. At that time, Nebuchadnezzar had already conquered Eretz Yisrael, but Parai, who was a ruler of a world power, wanted to go battle Nebuchadnezzar's armies in Carcamish, which was a town on the Euphrates. And indeed, when Paro got ready for that war, even in the reign of Yoshio, Yehoiakim's father, and that's why Yoshio got killed, because he didn't want to let Paro go through to go to Carcamish. The Battle of Carcamish was a very decisive defeat for Egypt, and it actually destroyed Mitzrayim as a world power. But Babylonia did not yet conquer Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was still an independent nation until after the destruction of the temple, and therefore part one of this Perek is discussing the breaking of Mitzrayim in the Battle of Carcamish during the reign of Yehoiakim. Part two of this chapter is the conquest of Bhavel. The conquest by Bhavel of Mitzrayim more than 20 years later, after the Churban Bayis Rishon, which was after the reign of Tzidkiyahu and after Gedaliah got killed. You'll recall the Jews fled to Mitzrayim, and they were told that Bhavel is going to follow them down to Mitzrayim. So these are two different events. There is the Battle of Carcamish in the reign of Yehoiakim, and then there is the conquest of Mitzrayim by Bhavel, which was after the Churban Beis HaMikdash and after the assassination of Gedaliah ben Achikam, and the two events are separated by approximately 20 years. So first we talk about the Battle of Carcamish, which is on the Euphrates. LeMitzrayim, Al Chel Paro Nechai Melech Mitzrayim Shehayal Nahar Pras Carcamish. This is a nevuah that is directed to the armies of Paro Necho. He was the king who killed Yoshiyahu Melech, in which his armies were encamped on the Euphrates River in the town of Carcamish. Asher Hika Nebuchadrezzar Melech Bhavel B'Shnas HaRevius HaYakim Ben Yerushalayim Melech Yehuda, that Nebuchadnezzar had defeated in battle in the 4th year of Yehoyakim ben Yoshiyahu. And this will be a prophecy about Mitzrayim's defeat, because even though they were not conquered, they were no longer a significant world empire because their army was decimated. Irchu Magain, this is somewhat poetic, so it's sometimes difficult to translate. Irchu Magain V'tzina Ugashul HaMilchama, as if to say, sarcastically, you, Mitzrayim, gather your shields and go to war. Isru asusim, tie up your horses, va'alu aprushim, and the cavalry, the horse riders, should come, bisyatzvu b'kayvayim, and stand with your helmets. Mirku haramachim, lifshu asher yonos. Take out your spears from their sheaths, and wear your chain mail armor. Right? Get ready, Mitzrayim. You're so powerful. You're going to attack Nebuchadnezzar. But what happened was, Madua Ra'isi Hema Chatim Nesegem Achor. So the prophet says sarcastically through his prophetic vision, why do I see this mighty Egyptian army being broken? Nesegem Achor, retreating backwards. V'giborehem yukatu. Their mighty ones are smitten. Umanos nasu, and they run away. V'loi hifnu, they don't even turn back to the enemy. Magor misaviv, Magor, there is fear all around them. Niyom Hashem, says Hashem. Al yonus hakal v'al yimolei tagibor. Even the swift runner will not be able to run away, and the mighty hero will not escape. Safona al Yad Nar Pras, up north of Mitzrayim, by the river Euphrates. Koshlu, the mighty army of Paro, stumbled, v'nafalu, and fell. Mi zeh kayaor ya'aleh kanaharos yisgashu v'hachen lach. Who is this that rises like the Nile? So again, it's kind of a sarcastic reference, because we know normally that the annual rising of the Nile was a great, great simcha in Mitzrayim that enabled the fertility of the Nile Delta, the growing of the crops, and everything else. But now, the Nevuah is basically saying there's going to be something else that will rise like a powerful river to engulf you and sweep you away. And that is the army of Nebuchadnezzar that will defeat you at Carcamish. Who is like the mighty Nile that rises? Kanaharos, like an overflowing river, Yisgashu Meimav, the waters are all turbulent. And the answer is, Pasuk Ches, Mitzrayim Kayaor Yala. Mitzrayim will try to rise like the Nile to attack Bhavel. V'chinaharos Yisgashu Mayim, and like a turbulent river will try to sweep away Bhavel. Vayomer, and Mitzrayim says to itself, A'aleh, I will arise, I will go north, Achaseh Eretz, I will cover the land with my soldiers. Ovida'ir, I will destroy cities, V'yoshviva, and the inhabitants. That's what Mitzrayim says. Alu asusim v'hisaylalu harechev. But the horses go up, and the chariots get confused, they get lost, meaning they're defeated. Vayetzu hagibarim, and the great heroes run away. Kush, uput, tofsei magen, beludim, tosei dorchi keshes, because Mitzrayim had a lot of mercenaries from other countries. Kush, which is Ethiopia, Put is again in northern Africa, all of whom are taking shields and weapons, and Lud, who are taking bows and arrows. But all of the great armies that Mitzrayim brings, is not going to help them. Vayomahu Lashem Elokim Tzvakot, and that day, the defeat of the Egyptian army at Carcamish will be for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yaim Nekama Linakim Mitzarav, a day of revenge, to take vengeance from his enemies, the Mitzrayim, Bi'achla Cherev, the sword will consume them, V'sava, and will be full. Again, the metaphor is, it's as if the sword is eating up lives. The sword will be satiated with all of the lives that it's devouring. V'ravsa midamam, it will be full from the blood. Ki zevach Lashem Elokim Tzvakos b'eretz Safon el nar pras. It is as it were a zevach. A zevach is a slaughter, but it also means a celebration for Hashem in the land of the north by Nahar Pras. Alei Gilad ukechit sari b'sulat bas Mitzrayim. You beautiful virgin of Mitzrayim, go to Gilad. Now Gilad was east of the Jordan. That's where originally the 2.5 tribes lived, Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi, Shevet, Menashe. And Gilad had sarit. Sarit is kind of balsam, which was an oil that had great medicinal use. So often in Tanakh it says, go to Gilad for the sarit, to get medicine, to get a soothing balm for your wounds. Ali Gilad ukechit sarit b'sulas v'asutzarim lashav hirbes refuot. But nevertheless, all of your attempts to be healed, to be secure, to be safe, to be strong, is lashav, is for naught. Ta'ala ein lach. Ta'ala, there is no refuah for you. And shamu goyim kilonech. All the nations of the world will hear about your shame. B'tzav chaseich Mala Aretz, and you're crying out like a little baby, will fill the world, that the mighty Egyptian army is crying like a child. Ki gibor begibor kashalu. That when your military heroes run away, you will bump into each other, you will trip over your own feet. Yachtav naflu shneim, and both of you will fall. So Pasuk Aleph through Pasuk Yud Beis is a description of the downfall of the Egyptian army in the battle of Carcamish. The next part, which is also Mitzrayim, is talking about the conquest of Mitzrayim by the Babylonians. And this is after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, after Gedaliah was killed. The Yidden ran to Mitzrayim to be protected from Bhavel. Bhavel, however, goes down and conquers Mitzrayim. So now we're not talking about Mitzrayim being defeated by Nahar Pras. We are talking about Mitzrayim being defeated in their own land, Mitzrayim, and having their land conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. So this is a different Nevuah, and it's around 20 years apart. Pasuk Yud Gimel, Hadavar Shadiber Hashem el Yirmiyahu Navi Lavo Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel Lahakos Eretz Mitzrayim. This was a Nevuah, right? Tzidkiyahu was already deposed, although he didn't die yet. This was a Nevuah when Nebuchadnezzar, we have these two readings. The king of Bhavel came to smite, to conquer the land of Mitzrayim. Now this happens to be, by the way, the Haftarah for Parshas Bay. Bay discusses the downfall of Mitzrayim that enslaved us through the Makkos, and this discusses another downfall of Mitzrayim in the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. So some of these psukim may be familiar to those of you who learn or remember the Haftarah. Hagidu b'Mitzrayim v'ashmiu b'Migdal v'ashmiu b'Naifu v'Sachan Peis. Announce in Mitzrayim and Migdol and Nof and Tachpanches. These are big cities in Mitzrayim. Imru, say, Hisyatzei v'hachin lach. Prepare yourselves, Mitzrayim. Ki achla cherev sevivecha. For the sword shall consume everything that's around you. Nebuchadnezzar is getting closer and closer and closer. Be ready for your inevitable defeat. Again, the Navi is sarcastic and utilizes rhetorical questions. Madua nischaf abirecha. Why have your mighty ones been swept away as if by a river? Lo yamad. They are not able to stand. Ki Hashem hadafo. Hashem has pushed them away. In other words, the fact that Nebuchadnezzar has power over you, it's not Nebuchadnezzar. It's because this was Hashem's decree. Hirba kaishel. Hirba kaishel. Hashem has increased the stumbling, the mistakes, the failures. Gam nafal ish el riheyu. And even one person has fallen in panic on the other person. As people run away, they fall over each other. Vayomru, and they say, Kuma v'nashuva el ameinu v'el eretz moladetenu. Let us rise up and return to our land and to our nation and the land of our birth. Now, obviously, this is not the Egyptians talking because they're in Mitzrayim, but this pasuk is referring to the mercenaries. Paro hires men from many, many different countries to fight the Babylonians. When these mercenaries see the awesome power of Bhavel, in which there's no way they will be able to defeat Bhavel, they now say, let us run away and let's go back to our own country. Mipnei cherev hayayna, because of the cherev of the yaina. Now again, this is a little bit of a difficult word to translate. Yaina, of course, often means a dove. But here, Yonah, Rashi says, comes from the word ona'ah, which means oppression. So cherev hayayna means the sword that oppresses. And Pasuk Yud Zayin then goes on and describes Pyros Matzav. Karu Shem. They have declared there. What have they declared? Parai Melech Mitzrayim. Sha'ain, the multitude, has declared about Paro Melech Mitzrayim. Hevir Hamoed. His time has passed. There was a time that Mitzrayim was a world empire. Everybody was scared of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was victorious in war. But now, Hevir Hamoed, its time for greatness is over. Pasuk Yitches, Chai Oni Nium Hamelech Hashem Tzavakai Shemai. By my life, says the King of Hashem, Ki katavor beharim ucha Carmel bayam yavo. As steadfast as Tabar is in the mountains, right? Mount Tabar is a prominent mountain, and it's always there. It's not going to be uprooted. Carmel is Hara Carmel, Haifa, which is on the Mediterranean coast. Hashem is saying, Nebuchadnezzar's conquest of Mitzrayim is as inevitable and final and unchanging as Tavar among the mountains and Carmel on the coast. And therefore, Klei Gaila Asi Loch Yesheves Bas Mitzrayim, talking about the nation of Mitzrayim as a woman, which is common in Nach. This woman is said, make for yourself the kalim that you will need to go into exile. You know, the bedding, the cups, the clothing. Prepare for yourself the kalim of exile. Ki naif l'shama tia, your great city Naif shall be reduced into desolation. V'nitzatza, it will be burnt me'ein yoshev, with nobody living in it. Egla yefeifia Mitzrayim, Mitzrayim is like a beautiful calf. Keretz mitzafon, bova. But a shechita from the north, which is Bhavel, Iraq, shall surely come. So the analogy is, you're a beautiful calf, ready for the slaughter. And gam sechira bekirba kegle marbek. And also the mercenaries are like fattened cattle. They're not going to be spared unless they run away. And they turned away and they ran away because the day of their destruction has come upon them. Eis b'kudasim, the time that God remembers their riches. The voice of Mitzrayim as it is being defeated, now this is a future nevuah, will be like the sound of the snake. Now this is a bit of a strange metaphor because snakes do not make loud noises. If the Navi is trying to explain how loud and bitter the cry of Mitzrayim will be, in what way can you compare them to Kaila Kenachash? So the truth is, Chazal actually say that this is referring to the original Nachash, and when Hashem took away the snake's legs and declared, Al b'chaincha telech, that you will have to crawl on your belly, so it mentions that the voice of the Nachash went, misofa olam ad sofo, from one end of the world to the other end of the world. And this pasuk is now saying, Mitzrayim will be like that Nachash. Ki b'chayil yelechu. For the Babylonians will come to Mitzrayim with a mighty army. Uvikardumot ba'ula kachaytfei eitzim. And they will come to Mitzrayim with axes, like those who cut trees. But you understand, the point is not that Bhavel will cut trees. Rather, they will come with axes to murder and decapitate people to the same degree that a person holding an axe would cut down trees. Korsu ya'ara num Hashem ki lo yachakor. Continuing the analogy, they will cut down the forest of Mitzrayim. Again, it does not refer to the forest, but to the people. Ki lo yachakor, in numbers that are so large that you can't even count. Ki rabu me'arba, because the Babylonians will be more than locusts. Ein lahem mispar. Hayvisha bas Mitzrayim, be ashamed, daughter of Egypt. Nitna biyad am tzafan, you will be delivered into the hands of a nation from the north. Amar Hashem Tzavakos Elokei Yisrael, Hineni Poket El Amon Mino Ve'al Paro Ve'al Mitzrayim Ve'al Elohel Ve'al Malacha Ve'al Paro Ve'al Bo. Behold, I am issuing a command to Ammon Minai. So Nai is a city, and Ammon was like the prince or the governor of Nai. And on Paro, and on Mitzrayim, and on its gods, and on its kings, and all who trust in that, I am hereby remembering their sins, and they are going to be destroyed. Unesatim biyad mevakshei nafsham, I will deliver them into the hands of those who seek their lives. That's Bhavel. Uviyad nebuchadrezzar melech Bhavel v'yad avoda v'yachar kain tishkin mekedev noshem. So at the very, very end here, there's a very odd statement. And after I deliver Mitzrayim to all of their enemies, there will come a time that I will restore them, and Mitzrayim will dwell, Kimei Kedem, as it did in ancient days. And Rashi refers us to a nevuah in the Navi Yecheskel that says, the desolation of Mitzrayim shall last for 40 years, less than the 70 years of the Jewish exile, and then Mitzrayim shall build itself up once again. We'll talk about this a little later, but it's very odd that after a long nevuah about the Chorban of Mitzrayim, there's a little few words at the end. Tishgain kimei kedem nu'um Hashem. So there's taka going to be hope for Mitzrayim, miketz arboim shana. Now, why is any of this important to the Jewish people? So Pasuk Chaf Zayin says, V'ata al tira of the Yaakov. This is the source of the famous Motzei Shabbos Zemer al tira avdi Yaakov. Do not be afraid, my faithful servant Yaakov. Al techas Yisrael. Do not be broken. Ki. In other words, even though you ran away to Mitzrayim and you thought you were safe, and the Babylonians are going to go into Mitzrayim, and you will be exiled again. So no matter where you go, the enemy is following you. But that's only in the short term. Hineni Moshiacha merachik. I will save you no matter how far you are. V'yesaracha me'eretz shivyam, and your seed from the land of their captivity. V'shav Yaakov v'shokat, and Yaakov will once again be tranquil. V'sha'anan, and serene. V'yein macharid, and nothing will be machrid, will make them tremble. Ata al tira avdi Yaakov nem Hashem, ki itcha ani, I am with you. Ki esa kola b'chola gam yadei chashama, I will visit destruction on all of the nations that pushed you into Golus. V'yaischa lo yaseh chala, but to you I will never destroy. Now, the pasuk ends, V'sarticha lamishpat, I will give you Yisurin in accordance with justice as punishment for your sin, and as a way to encourage you to do tshuva. So there will be suffering, there will be tsarais, there will be yisurin. But all of it is for mishpat, for the justice of either punishing or being married to tshuva. V'nakei lo anakeka, but I will not clean you up, and that means I will not obliterate you, meaning here, nakeh is a bad thing, to be destroyed, like totally wiped up. V'nakeh lo anakeka means that even though I will give you Yisurin, that may be a difficult mishpat, but you will never be utterly obliterated. So that is the end of the nevuah about Mitzrayim.